we are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk. Welcome to the show. This is another episode of P-Car Talk. We're at special location in Amelia Island. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we have special guest, CEO of Motorsports, Dr. ARMBRUSTER, on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's a super treat for us. We're motorsport guys, so this is so great to have somebody at your level on the show to kind of talk about what motorsports does, from the spec level and all the kind of stuff that and you guys offer. But we'll get into a little bit of background, as far as your German background and things like that. As far as like racing and all that stuff, were you always interested in racing when you were a young boy and things like that? Were you always kind of going to the track or fascinated by racing? Tell us a little bit about your background there.
For sure, as a young boy, I was really interested in cars, but I was born in Dortmund, and so that's in central Germany. Yeah. It's a very poor area in former times. It was a mining and coal area. Okay. So racing wasn't really
it wasn't a priority, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but cars for sure. And my brother and I, we converted, for example, go-karts and added from a tractor machine. So. An engine
awesome.
And we combined everything, and then we went out driving on the street cars, on the streets.
How old were you when you were doing that?
Oh, probably 12.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes we were stopped by the police with the go-kart, and we had to go back. Yeah. So, they never could stop us.
So you and your brother always kind of had that, wanted to do something with cars, something fun, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
When was the first time that you, growing up a little bit, when you kind of first saw a track in person? How old were you when you kind of did that? Do you remember? Is that memory kind of?
I know it very exactly because it was Sebring 2007, so quite late. I was in my 40s.
Okay.
I was in charge for the electronic department at the motorsports department. So I changed my job within Porsche several times and tried just to get more insights about the company. And then 2007, a colleague of mine asked me whether I want to take over the electronic department. And it was March 1st. I started working, and the first race was in 2007 with the R Spider in Sebring.
Yeah.
And that was my first race, and also the first time I was in America.
So, so all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be amazing. Sebring.
Yeah, but it was really a disaster because I can tell you. After 4 hours, it was with the R Spider. So Roger Penske and Rob Dyson, they had both two cars on track.
Yeah.
And after 4 hours, all four cars had alternator problems.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had to change the batteries during the race several times, and we had to charge them with an electrical charger.
Yeah.
And everyone was just looking at me, and what a mess. And I said, hey guys, I wasn't responsible for the development. I'm just here since 3 weeks.
They're like, welcome to America.
Exactly.
We're having major problems with the cars. Can you give us some answers? You're like, hey man.
We got this electrical engineer.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was really a tough start for me in racing, but that gives me really the initial push to know what is racing about. Because if you find or if you have a problem at the racetrack, you have to solve it as soon as possible. So I went back, and Mr. Dürheimer, at that time R&D, head of R&D at Porsche. He's now a close friend with Roger Penske.
Yeah.
Yesterday at the banquet, he told that story as well.
Yeah, I heard it was a great story.
And Mr. Dürheimer said, hey, Daniel, I want to see you on a weekly basis, and I want to see what you are doing. And I said, okay. So it was quite a tough start, and half a year later, everything was sorted out. And it wasn't just the alternator, it was a lot
there was a lot of stuff. What did you think about Sebring as a track as a whole? First time seeing it, what were your opinions about Sebring?
First of all, there's in an infield a huge party.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
And I saw the trucks circling around with sofas on the pickups, and the guys were celebrating. And sometimes they had on the pickup the pool. So it's a really a huge party, and I think the fans are very important for racing. And,
Absolutely.
Sebring is for sure a pinnacle in that case. Track-wise, from technical point of view, it's also quite tough because you have lots of bumps, very hard bumps, and if you want to develop or define the requirements for all your parts, normally you just have normal loads, accelerations, for example, and if we have analyzed all the tracks worldwide, and this leads into our requirements. But normally, or in the past, we never covered the bumps at Sebring.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, it's a very important part of the development, the bumps at Sebring, because everyone is aware if you can survive in Sebring, you can survive worldwide.
That's a good point, because a lot of people do say that, even from the weekend racer or DE racers, it's the most treacherous track on your vehicle. And if your car can survive that, then you built a pretty good car, right?
So there are just a few tracks worldwide you have to consider. It's Sebring because of the bumps, Daytona because of the banking. That's also a huge load on the suspension.
Okay.
And
and that's the first race of the year, so it's kind of like,
off.
here we go.
We'll find out.
Yeah. No, but Sebring, did you get to go out and vehicle, like on a hot lap in a vehicle, and feel how rough Sebring actually was as a passenger? Yeah, it's really rough, isn't it?
Yeah. So you are really shaked all around.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an old track too. I think, like, for us, because we go to so many tracks, and when we see that, I understand why the track is the way it is, but also at the same time, I kind of wish sometimes it wouldn't be the way it is. You know what I'm trying to say?
They'd update it a little bit.
I think without the bumps and the tough surfaces, I think Sebring wouldn't be that special as it is today. And also for the drivers, because they have to absorb all these loads. And if you are driving 12 hours under this load, that's really tough for the driver as well. Yeah,
that's a very, very good point, because they keep it that way because it's part of the characteristic of the track. Everybody knows, every driver, every team that comes in, it's like, oh man, we've got Sebring coming up. It's one of those things. It's like,
it's the same way as you, if you want to convert a pub, for example, which is very special, you want to make it up to date. It loses the specifics, and I think that's with the racetracks as well. So sometimes you have to change things, but more for our fans, so that it is a little bit more convenient. But the type of the track shouldn't be changed.
So the facility you guys have in LA, we've visited a couple times. It's gorgeous. It's amazing, and the tour that we had inside, it was absolutely amazing. And then the dyno is my favorite part in the back, where you have that inside. And Eric and I have talked offline a lot about the uniqueness of having something that special there, and all of the special cars that you guys do see. Can you tell the listeners a little bit? You guys kind of work on everything from a club level car to even like a privateer, correct? As far as engine work or suspension work or anything, or completely setting up a car, you guys can do that all at your facility in Los Angeles, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Our specialty is for sure drivetrains, so engine and gearboxes, because we are saying that's the heart of the car, and but we also are doing overall restorations. But we also have our partners; they are doing restorations, and we are delivering then or doing the drivetrains for them. So I think it's a little bit like a job split, because our workshop is extremely clean. You have seen it.
Yes.
So it looks like a surgery room.
It does.
And if you are working on engines, it has to be absolutely clean.
Which makes total sense, because it should be surgical, because you don't want no microns, nothing in the engine.
And that sounds quite logic, but it is for sure the case, because when I was in Germany, responsible for the quality management in the motorsports department, we also had, for example, one case when we serviced the engines. There was construction work, and then concrete dust fall down. And it was in the engine.
Oh no!
And all of a sudden, on the racetrack, it blew up.
Oh wow!
And we did all the analysis, and we found concrete, and we never could think about where does it come from.
Yeah.
And it was really a huge investigation.
Wow.
And then we realized, okay. It was the concrete, everything, and now everywhere when we are doing services in Germany, but also in LA, everything is covered. So when we finish the work, the daily work, at the end of the day, we are covering everything. Also, our spare parts are covered just because of the dust.
Yeah, I saw that, and like you said, as far as logic goes, but you really do think about how fine-tuned all of the engines are, especially in the motorsport area. There's not a lot of room for play or error, and an engine is not going to be happy with any kind of particles in it. So, especially if you're competing to win, that's another thing too. Everything matters. So you guys, if I were to own, let's say, a 996 GT3 Cup car, and I'm racing for fun, or HSR, or whatever I'm doing with the car, and now my hours for service are coming up on the car, that car can go to you guys for service to get refreshed and all that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So very often we have partners, the team owners, they are servicing the entire car, and they are doing all the logistics at the racetracks, and they have our gentleman drivers, and if the service is necessary, they send us they pull the engine, and they send the engine to us.
Yeah.
So that's the normal way. But if you want to have, if you don't have a team or a kind of service provider, then you also can send us the car, and we pull the engine and do all the services.
And Eric and I, we've spoke offline previously, and another great service that I think the listeners should know, and I want to reiterate, that you guys provide a service at the track too. You support teams when you're there, which is very rare. You're there with a gearbox if somebody is there for the weekend and their gearbox blows up, and you have that there, which is very rare support from a lot of other manufacturers. You guys are there, and their weekend's not over because you guys are there.
Yeah, the key is for us to ensure seat time. And seat time means really the car has to run at the racetrack, because we analyze the cost structure of a weekend, and logistic cost is a huge portion. So if you want to go racing over the weekend, you are investing a lot of money, even without any second of seat time. So at least we have to ensure that seat time is possible. And that's the reason for having all these support at the racetrack. We have trucks with spare parts, we have a spare engine, spare gearbox, and we have technical support and logistical parts support at the racetrack. And everything is really focused on ensuring seat time. Okay,
that makes total sense. I mean, that's where you're going to get the most hours, and you're going to get the best the more you're in the car, obviously. So you don't want to be working on the car. You want to spend time in the car. Yeah, and you can define the customer service pretty complex, but everything comes down to seat time. Yeah, we have to ensure seat time for our customers. Absolutely. So let's transition a little bit back to your career. Did you see when you were with Porsche AG, did you always have a goal to try to get to the motorsports division, or is that something it just your career took you there? When I started 2000 at Porsche, my first project was the Carrera GT. And that's what a great start, isn't it? Yeah. So my former boss, he said, "Hey, you are a very poor guy, because after this project, everything got worse." Exactly. But it didn't. I can promise you. Yeah. So with the Carrera GT, it was developed in the motorsports department, and I was in the series development department. And as a young engineer, I was responsible for the lighting, so headlights, tail lights, and the wiper system.
for a newcomer, for a rookie, quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I learned the business really from the foundation.
Okay.
So at the CID,
Yeah.
I did all the concepts. I learned CID to work with
Nice.
CID, and but then it was ramped up quite fast.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, I was responsible for the entire electronics
Wow.
for this car.
Must have been doing some good job then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really perfect. Yeah, it's, even when I see today at Cars and Coffee the Carrera GT.
I was just going to
Yes.
say that car must be a special car for you in your heart too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's where you started. So now that car always holds a special spot
Yeah.
for you, huh?
Yeah, for me personally, but I think also for the company because
Oh, yes.
Oh,
if
that's a
you
jewel.
look, this car is still amazing. Look at the styling of our cars. Everything is related to it. So the middle console, it's far up today,
Yes.
and that was designed with the Carrera GT.
Yeah, it was a trendsetter.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And I tell people and listeners, and I'll say it again, everybody, I still feel even at the price point that car is trading secondhand is still undervalued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is such a special car. I mean, everything, if you guys do your research on it, I won't bore you with it on the show, but you should do your research because that car, so many special things have gone into that car that will never get done again into another Porsche. I mean, that really is such a special car.
Yeah, and it's full carbon fiber. It's a V10.
Yes.
So lots of unique topics. A monocoque.
And that engine was derived, it was supposed to go into F1, correct?
Yep.
And then that got pulled. So then Porsche said, okay, let's put it in a road car. I
Yeah.
mean, how special is that? That's so special.
Yeah. The idea that was a time of Wendelin Wiedeking, and he turned the company, rescued the company for about the bankruptcy in the 90s, and everything was streamlined and to have to be in focus on making money, and that's also the purpose of every company, to be honest. So he
if
said,
you're not making money, why are you there? Right?
yeah, exactly, and otherwise we can't offer even today a nice product.
Exactly.
So and with this car, he said, we have all the concepts made in motorsports, and now let's turn it into a street legal car.
Yeah.
And lots of
What a gift to the public that he did to do that, though.
and a gift to the engineers,
Yeah.
because it was really fun to
Yeah.
Yeah,
handle all
and
these
luckily for you,
engineers.
you got to be a
exactly,
part of that from the very beginning. I
Yeah.
mean, you must have been mind blown. You know,
Yeah.
when you first there as a rookie, like you were saying, you were probably, obviously very professional when you're at work, but like in your mind, you're probably thinking like, is this really happening? Like I just got here and I get to work on this thing?
Yeah.
I get to work on the flagship? Yeah, I mean, and it's still to this day, I feel the same way about you. I feel with Porsche, at least from a modern standpoint, that car will always be very special to me. And if I ever get an opportunity to like afford or own one of those cars,
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
want one of those so badly. They sound so good. They're just, everything about them is
That's so many things right on it.
good.
And also, as a collector car and in future vintage car, it's quite easy to maintain this car and getting parts for it.
Yeah.
Because I'm an electrical engineer, was responsible for the electronics, so it was based on the Boxster architecture.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
it's really a very robust electronic system, and I think that's the key for the future, to also have the knowledge to keep these cars running.
maintain it.
Yeah.
And with the newer cars or with today's car, we have lots of electronics and lots of software components in these cars. So it's getting more difficult in the future also to documentate everything, keep the knowledge in the company, so that we also can keep the older cars running.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Porsche Classic,
and Porsche's invested into Porsche Classic, so you could see that there's this. Porsche as a company has gotten behind wanting to keep these cars alive, which is a great thing as well.
Yeah.
So you get to keep your baby alive.
Yeah. So 70% of sold cars right now are still on streets,
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good testament here at Amelia Island.
Exactly.
Look at how many
Yeah.
vintage cars are here, still on the road, and most of these cars drove here to this event.
And lots of cars are looking better than you.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Also.
Well maintained.
Yeah, Porsche people love their stuff.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the future, which I kind of want to touch on a little bit and tap into some of your knowledge. So talking about LMP car, when the prototype car, when it was the hybrid system, Porsche obviously learned a lot from that. And since that car's not operating, does a lot of those components, you being an electrical engineer, did that make its way into the Taycan?
Yeah,
Is that
the
kind of
system
like,
and stuff.
can you describe some of that? Was there some learned knowledge to help the Taycan from LMP?
Yeah, it starts after the R Spider, so in 2008.
Okay.
So it went that far back.
Yeah.
So when Wolfgang Dürhammer was the R&D head
Okay.
in Weissach, after the R Spider project, he knew me pretty well because of all these problems in this car at the beginning, and he said, "Hey Daniel, we are looking for hybrid systems, and here's a little bit budget, just go playing." And then I started with my team, with my former team, with the and looked into this technology, and then we developed the GT3R hybrid, and we also not just developed the technology, but also the method and the knowledge for that. So we hired a professor from the university. He gave us lessons in high voltage technologies, how to design engines, and so that was really, I would say, a couple of weeks just classroom teaching. And
what year was that happening around? Was that 08, 09?
2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we needed around about a year to develop all these technologies, also to define the voltage and what kind of energy storage.
Okay.
And at that time, batteries weren't really able to fulfill these requirements. So we had a flywheel, but just to store the energy mechanically. But the focus laid really on developing the engine, getting more knowledge about high voltage. And after this project, we transferred lots of knowledge into the 918 Spider. So Frank Welleser was responsible for this car as a project manager, and he was before that in the motorsports department responsible for strategy. And so we worked together, and he knew with a front wheel based engine, as we did it in the GT3R hybrid. It is very performant. So he developed based on the R hybrid, he developed the 918. And
I see.
Then it came back to the LMP project because my team then worked after the GT3R hybrid for the LMP1. And there we decided to step up with the voltage level. So from 450 volts to 850.
800, yeah.
And in that time we also looked in voltages above 1,000 volts.
Oh, wow.
But then we realized it's not really easy above 1,000 because you have to consider isolation and this kind of stuff. No, it's a little bit
I love it. No, I love it though. Like we have
detailed,
technical minds. No, the people that listen are very into it. So trust me, it's fine. You can talk about it. It's fine.
So if you stay below 1,000 volts, then you are still safe, and you can use today's technology by isolation, for example. So that means now it's an industry standard with 850 volts.
Okay.
And that's also the voltage now what you can see in the Taycan.
Yeah.
So you see it's everything is
progression.
Yeah.
Okay. So as future as racing goes, obviously Porsche has gone into Formula E, and they're going to be competing in that. From an IMSA standpoint and combustion engine, since you're in the motorsport division, what's your 5 to 10 year look from you can see where racing is going with combustion engines? Are we going to end up going, like, you think IMSA is ever going to make that leap, or we're going to be seeing
at least a hybrid,
maybe electric, or what do you see there from your perspective?
Yeah, they already announced an LMDH called Le Mans Daytona
really?
hybrid standard technical regulation, so that you can drive or race in the IMSA series, but also in Le Mans. So they are working on that, and this is, I think, the midterm future. It's quite interesting because you can race in worldwide with this car. It's a standard monocoque, so the costs are quite low. For all the factories, and I think in today's time, we also have to consider a little bit more in the cost of racing, because everyone has to develop combustion engines still, but also hybrid cars, full electric cars, because of the requirements, pollution requirements worldwide, especially in China, huge market. So
that's a major market for Porsche.
That's additional cost because you have to develop both technologies parallel. And so we have to look where we can gain more efficiencies, and that was also leads into this result to bring IMSA and FIA together for the new regulation.
I mean, that's why the 992 has the empty space. It's kind of ready to take hybrid technology, right? Kind of like, essentially.
This is the LMDH is a prototype car.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I meant for the street car. Like the 992 street car is chassis, isn't it already kind of developed to accept a hybrid technology already? Isn't that chassis, at least from what I read, they're saying there's a space inside the car, I guess, for a battery for it, but they're not going to put it in yet, but eventually. Eventually. But I mean, I think that's a natural progression, though, like you said.
Makes sense.
Racing, like everything with regulations. And I think it goes back to, obviously, from a motorsports perspective, if you're racing a hybrid car or a 911, for example, well, fans and people like this probably want to buy a hybrid 911. Like, you can't necessarily race something that you're not selling to, right? So it's kind of one of they have to go hand in hand. So if you see the motorsports go that way, well, you know eventually it's going to be in the street car, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the hybrid car is a little bit underestimated. We drove, for example, as a company car or family car, a Cayenne. And now I have a Cayenne E hybrid.
Oh yeah, good cars.
And even my wife, she's
they're
saying,
powerful.
Hey, what is changing here? And I said, it's a hybrid. And she said, it's so much more agile. It's because of the torque of the engine.
Oh yeah,
the
516
electrical
foot-pounds.
Yeah,
that's.
It is. We've driven one, and they are robust.
Yeah. And when we developed the GT3 hybrid, we also converted a street car for our engineers just to go play.
Oh man!
And it was a GT3 RS with a GT3R hybrid system in it.
Oh wow!
Super cool.
I bet that was really fun.
Yeah, with additional 200 horsepower at the front axle, and it was really amazing.
Now you're gonna have people listen. You're like, I want to do that. Can I do that to my car? It's like, no, you cannot. That was for prototyping. That's for internal use only. No, that's awesome. Aaron, do you have a couple of things that you wanted to go over? I know you had
we
some
kind
stuff.
We kind of talked about it. We hit on it. I was just wondering, like the GT3R, the 450 volts, and then with the RS Spider when you went 850, was that just power differences, battery technology changing? Like, were you able? Could you have done 800 volts in the GT3R at the time, or was it just still too new and testing and?
Changing the 450 volts to 850, it's not just
well, I know
switching.
It's not just, I know it's a lot of development behind it. I just wondered.
The reason why normally everyone is stepping up in the voltage is you can run based on the same power, lower current.
Okay.
And if you have a lower current, you don't need these thick cables. And thick cables means lots of copper and weight, and and that's the reason why everyone is stepping up in the voltage. But as I said, there's a cap in the voltage is around about by 1,000, so you need a little bit margin of safety, and that's the reason for being at 850.
I just wondered that progression, and like we talked about before, I was thinking, I was like, well, if the RS Spider went 850 volts, obviously 800 volts with the Taycan, then that had to transfer. So I know you said your Sebring experience was one of your first track experiences in America. You didn't do any track things and when you were still in Germany and all? No Nürburgring, no.
Before that,
Yeah.
no. No. but with the GT3R hybrid, we were at the Nürburgring several times, also for the 24-hour race, and that was quite a lot for fun.
Lovely. That's cool.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
That's all I had. That was just a couple of things. Just
Okay.
the voltage and just I was just curious. I mean, Sebring being your first track, still a good track.
Oh yeah. What a
It's
baptism
Yeah.
by fire when the cars aren't working. Fix them.
Yeah, we have one electrical engineer.
Yeah.
That guy.
He's the guy.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. No, but
This year I was at the 48-hour Sebring race with PCA.
okay.
And that was my first compensation for this experience because every time when I hear Sebring, I'm a little bit
A little apprehensive.
nervous.
Yeah, a little apprehensive. You're like, oh yeah, I remember Sebring. Yeah, that's funny.
And this time it was really so relaxed.
Yeah, a
and
lot.
still professional, but everyone had just fun. 400 Porsche race cars.
Yeah,
So
and you're like,
the guys did
okay,
a
this is
perfect
how
job.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
I'm not supposed to be
That's-
stressed
As a
out.
fan
That's
and not,
racing.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be stressed out. I'm supposed to have fun. This is what this was. Okay, I had a good time.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
I never experienced it. That's relaxed. That was really my first time. So,
Nice. So
PCA
you
is
really
doing
enjoyed it, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, they are doing awesome job.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we don't want to take too much more of your time. We want to thank you so much for coming on the show, Dr. Armbruster. It was an honor to have you on and just share some of your knowledge and racing. And I know that people listening are really appreciate that you took the time to come on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It
Of
was
course.
a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at pcartalk.com.